Pretty much every drink comes in a plastic bottle. In fact, globally, we use around 1.3 billion of them, wait for it, every day. Wow. That's a lot of packaging, so what if we could be more creative than just throwing them away? Well, good news! There are lots of ingenious ways to give them a second life in the garden, and today I'll be sharing some of my favourites that will help to save you money, cut waste, and give your plants a boost as well. Best get on then. Cut the bottom off bottles and then simply pop them over seedlings to protect them from cold weather. Now, if it's windy or likely to be windy, which it usually is, then secure a cane down the middle like this just to hold it in place and stop it blowing away. Now, this will protect these little seedlings from cold and cheeky nibblers, and the slightly warmer microclimate in there will be nice and snug to slightly speed up growth too. Mini greenhouses like this are especially useful at the start of the season when there are still cold or even frosty nights, but you want to enjoy a bit of a head start. In here, the temperature will be raised by a few degrees, which will make a lot of difference. But perhaps the biggest effect is that this bottle will protect our young seedling from cold and biting winds. It'll be nice and snug in here, just the job. These protected seedlings will have a big advantage over those without protection, and as the season progresses, well, look out for those gallon-sized bottles that will help to protect slightly bigger plants. Some crops like squash or tomatoes need consistent soil moisture to give the very best results. So make an effective little drip irrigating system which will save water while keeping plants nice and quenched. So I'm starting by just making some holes in the neck of the bottle here. I find it a bit easier if the bottle has already got some water in it to help give something to push against. And just make them all round the neck here, and then maybe one in the cap as well, and then we'll cut off the bottom. Sink the prepared bottle neck first next to your thirsty plant, and then simply fill it up with water. Now, the water will drain through exactly where it's meant to be at the roots, and because it's all contained, much less of it will be lost to evaporation. No fancy kit required. You'll have seen me using my trusty pump action hand sprayer to water delicate seedlings or just sown seeds. Now, I really like it because it avoids blasting out the potting mix or generally unsettling it, which you might get from a stronger flow of water. But another option is to make a gentle flowing mini watering can for free, simply by just spiking in some holes into a cap like this. Now, you could use something sharp like this tiny mini screwdriver here, or even better, a compass with that nice point to get those holes just so. Now it's just a question of filling up the bottle and screwing the cap back on. And voila, an instant watering can that gives a gentle sprinkling, perfect for seedlings. Create a simple trap for slugs and snails and stop them in their rasping tracks. Now, I've pre-prepared this bottle. I've cut it all the way along here, but leaving a bit of a hinge at the back here so that this stays on to keep the rain out. And then I've cut a notch here for the slugs to go into. Now we're going to bury it, and I'm going to bury it so that the lip of the trap here sits about an inch or a couple of centimetres above the ground like that. Now, that just means that little ground beetles, which actually eat slugs, won't accidentally walk in and fall in at ground level because it's slightly raised. The slugs will be able to get in. And now, just to add a bait, you could use beer or, as I'm doing here, a yeasty liquid. And if you'd like to know more about how to make this liquid, well, do check out our slug control video, which I will link to down below. Dispose of any slugs that get drowned in here every few days by just emptying the whole lot out onto a compost heap or dumping it at the base of a shrub or a hedge. Incidentally, you can use the same principle for controlling fruit flies in the kitchen. Instead of using a yeasty liquid like beer, this time we're going to add apple cider vinegar, and that's in a cut down pot like this, as well as a few drops of dish soap or washing up liquid. There we are. Then on goes a clear bit of plastic, which we're going to secure it into place with an elastic or rubber band like that. And with that done, we're just going to punch a few holes into it for the flies to get in. And there we are. What will happen is the fruit flies will be attracted to the irresistible vinegar smell. They'll get in there and won't be able to get out. And your fruit bowl here will be unscathed. Cut a bottle at an angle like this to create a garden scoop, one with a nice little handle. This makes a great little scoop for scooping up the likes of potting mix, fertiliser, or even ice for gritting paths in winter. For my scoop I've used an old milk bottle, but if you're after something a little bit sturdier, then try something like a detergent or cleaning bottle. Just make sure you wash it and rinse it out really thoroughly before cutting it down. I'm running out of empty bottles, so we'll have to use our imagination with this milk bottle here. But one thing you can do to make a lovely wall planter is just to cut a square notch out of here, spike your holes in the bottom as usual, fill with your potting mix and then plant. Once prepped and planted, you can then secure this individually to the wall or in a great bank of planters, as seen here in the garden of Gerald Stratford. And if you'd like to see more of this truly ingenious gardener, well, do have a look at our garden tour of Gerald's garden, which I will link to in the description below. Cut down bottles make excellent little seed starting pots. Now, to cut a bottle in half, the way I do it is to pinch it like that and get a really sharp little serrated knife, make an indent like that, and then I can get in there with my scissors to cut all the way round. There we go. Now for drainage holes, we need to spike some holes into the bottom, and I need a good firm surface for that, so I'm going to do it on the ground here. Use something like a skewer, or in this case a pointed Phillips screwdriver, and just poke it in like that, nice and steady. Doing it on the ground like that is much safer. And there's our pot ready to sow. Then once you're done sowing, you can pop the top on like this to create a nice, humid, warm and cosseted environment, perfect for germination. Clear bottles are also fantastic for taking cuttings as well, because, well, you'll be able to see root development through the walls of the bottle here, and once you see the roots, you know it's time to break them apart and pot them on. Or simply use a bottle, plastic or glass or otherwise, and pop in cuttings that can be just rooted directly in water like that. These are mint. And then when you see your roots, you're good to go. Make a handy little bird feeder by cutting notches into the side of a bottle. And now we can stick wooden spoons in. These will create little perches for the bird, but the seed will spill out onto the spoon and then they can feed from the spoon itself. Perfect. Let's get this filled with our seed. This is a fantastic way of helping our feathered friends as the temperatures begin to tumble. Now I'm using a seed mix here, which is full of energy, which is exactly what birds need as the temperatures begin to tumble. Seeds and nuts are full of fats and really energy dense, just perfect for the winter months. Just hang up your feeder well above the ground out of the way of cats, and then enjoy our feathered friends flocking to your seedy banquet. Young, recently planted trees or saplings are quite vulnerable to strimmer or weed trimmer damage. I've done it before and torn at the stem there. So one option is to make your own impromptu tree guards. Just slice a bottle that's been topped and tailed like this vertically, and then simply slip it round the stem like that. Now I'm going to secure this later on with a bit of tape to hold it in place, and then that isn't going anywhere, and well, the bottom's nicely protected. Don't forget storage. Cut bottles in half and then screw or mount them onto the likes of walls or benches like this in the potting shed or greenhouse for a neat and recycled storage container. Now these are perfect for things like stray labels and all sorts of tools and bits of twine and so on, all neatly stowed away. Remove the labels from old bottles, then fill them back up with water and screw on the lids. Now these can be positioned around cold sensitive young plants. Now what happens is the water acts a bit like a storage heater, absorbing heat from the sun's rays during the day, then emitting it back out at night to create a slightly more stable environment around your young plants. This method works especially well in a more enclosed environment like a cold frame, where it will help to raise the temperature by a crucial few degrees. And because the bottles are see-through, more light will be able to get through to your precious plants. Slip over upturned bottles onto uprights like bamboo canes, and then pop over your protection of choice, whether mesh or insect netting. Now what the bottles will do is neatly support your cover while preventing it from rubbing and tearing in the wind, keeping your crops safe and you happy. Smaller bottles can also be popped over canes used to support plants like peppers. No more risk of poking your eye out. And there you have it, 12 clever ways to reuse plastic bottles in the garden. Now if you've enjoyed these ideas, you will absolutely love the completely free abridged version of my book. It's absolutely rammed full of seasonal tips and tricks to help you get the most from your garden. Just pop on over here to get hold of your copy simply by signing up to our video newsletter. I'll catch you next time.